Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank with Jeff Kolpack from the Forum of Fargo Morning. I'm Dom Izzo from WDAY Sports. It is a bye week for North Dakota State. The Bison off this week after a loss 23-21 to South Dakota State. Last Saturday, the Bison sit at 5-2, 3-1 in Missouri Valley Conference play with 4 weeks to go.
The world is ending.
Well, there's a lot of news happening off the field. You might think it's an actual game week with the amount of news that's actually circled around the Bison football program here since the last time they played. The news on Phoenix Sproles. You had an exclusive with Noah Gindorff I want to talk about. Cody Mauch is in the news today for being one of the, I don't know if finalists is the right word, but under consideration for the Walter Payton Award, which goes to the top offensive player in the country, which I want to dive into that before we wrap up here today. But let's start with the first and the obvious, Jeff, on Phoenix Sproles. News came down Monday. We reported that he is leaving the team. He's entered the transfer portal now officially, and his time at NDSU is done after roughly 4.5 years with the Bison. First, give me your immediate reaction, and then we'll go from there on what this means going forward.
For whatever reason, yeah, I guess I'm not really shocked by this matter, just the way things were going down this season. He didn't play for a couple games, got the explanation it was a hamstring, which I guess you could say has been going back a year or two. I mean, that's been the issue.
Leg issues have been a while for 2 springs now.
But just not productive. Just not productive. Let's just call it like it is. Just a couple throws his way, he dropped.
Against Youngstown.
Yep, and just wasn't a factor in the offense. I think he got passed on the depth chart. Certainly DJ Hart has passed him. Certainly Zach Mathis has passed him as more of a targeted receiver. And it just, that he reaches 4 games, and that's the red shirt. That's the max you can before you red shirt, before your eligibility starts ticking. And now that after 4 games, I think I don't know if it was a two-way conversation or somebody said, are you in or are you out?
Last week, Logan Campbell brought to my attention that he had scrubbed all of his NDSU images off of his Instagram, which that's the way now athletes go about to say if they're unhappy. Remember?
That was before the South Dakota State game.
Correct. Yep. Apparently they went back up, but there was something obviously brewing here, Jeff. It just didn't happen after the Jacks game and made the decision on Monday. There has been something going. I think your point on the depth chart is well taken. When I look at DJ Hart's coming out party against the Jacks, I look at Braylon Henderson has passed him, Raja Nelson to a certain extent. I always hear the best ability is availability. And Phoenix, he played all 15 games last year, right? But again, he had the big play against South Dakota in the regular season finale. He had the big catch against Missouri State that tied the game. But other than that, his impact was not huge. And I go back to his sophomore season, because remember, he played as a true freshman in 2018. He had the huge catch at Target Field in the first game with Trey Lance and the touchdown in the national championship game on the reverse. It's been a long time since he's had an impact directly on the football game outside of those couple plays.
And those 2 plays will go down as his legacy with Bison football, and that's really about it. The South Dakota play was electric, but the consistency was not there. It just wasn't. He just wasn't a dependable player game in and game out, and I just, is it going to hurt NDSU? No, I don't think so.
I want to get to that in a second. I want to ask you because we talked about this on Monday, you and I did, and I talked about it with Mike McFeely on my show on Tuesday. Highly visible player. The city of Fargo went to him in North Dakota State to be the guy, the first athlete for the COVID vaccine to get your shot because they knew how popular he was. He has a huge social media following. He was the first to get a name, image, likeness deal at North Dakota State. And I think there's a certain section of fans that say if you're going to do all this, that there needs to be a certain productivity on the field. I don't believe they are intertwined. It's not how it works anymore with NIL. Kids are getting deals out of high school before they've even done anything in college. But I think there's a section of fans that say, if you're going to do all this, you better have 35 catches for 700 yards and 8 touchdowns.
What was it you that gave the example of Baker Mayfield? Not the most productive player in the NFL, but man, he's all over
absolutely
the commercial airwaves for sure.
Yep.
That's just so no, that is not a mutually
exclusive deal there.
Absolutely not. Visibility. I did a story on his mother, and she's a traveling nurse, which is one of the most compelling stories I've ever done. That she, day in and day out during the height of COVID, was dealing with death all the time. And talk to Phoenix about it, and is again one of those stories that I'll just never forget. I like talking to Phoenix. I like the kid.
Absolutely.
Just didn't get it done on the football field.
Do you believe that on the correlation part? I know you talk to fans all the time. I got a sense that there were fans that were, I don't know if unhappy is the right word, but if you're going to do all this, you better be doing it on Saturdays.
Well, I think they're so new to NIL that let's just let this play out a little bit and see how it goes down the line. NIL is 2 years old. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's really not hit this market very hard, certainly.
Phoenix was the first. That's why it's such a big deal, I think.
But it still wasn't, Cam Miller you see on the airwaves all the time. I never really saw Phoenix on the airwaves a whole lot.
He didn't
air a commercial.
Right. It was more of a social media thing that Phoenix was out there doing. Not nearly as visible as what Cam Miller's Comfort King commercial that he has going now. I just think that when you look at the most popular and most visible athletes on the North Dakota State campus, Phoenix Sproles is up there. There's no doubt. I mean, regardless of whatever you say about production-wise, I mean, when you talk about most popular players that people know, he was out there as a visible part of the community, going to youth football or whatever. That's why it's such a, I think for people that don't follow it closely, it's maybe a jarring thing that this happened at this particular point.
It started right away, too, because he hooked his train with Trey Lance. They were two best of friends coming here.
They were 1 and 2 in that,
and they were going to lead them to
class.
4 national titles. Well, that thought didn't really stick once Lance left.
And then you look Christian Watson, his other best bud, who's also playing in the NFL now. I mean, that's tough. I don't know about that. And I don't know, Jeff, if the opportunity that he is looking for, I'll just say this, if an FBS Power 5 is going to come that way. I just don't know.
I don't see it right now. I don't see any FBS throwing out certainly scholarship money and NIL money and cost of attendance for the guy of those statistics and that reliability.
So let me flip this now. You alluded to it. You don't think the wide receiver room will be affected, or the Bison as a whole. We look going forward here. The Bison have 4 games left, and I want to get into this later on in our podcast here. But frankly, the production wasn't there anyway. He had on the season, he finished with 3 receptions for 29 yards. So NDSU's not losing anything production-wise. Is it addition by subtraction, I'll ask you?
Well, if anything, maybe now DJ Hart gets more reps, and maybe you stick DJ out instead of rotating 8-9 guys.
Maybe it's DJ and Zach Mathis out there. He certainly looked like in the first half against South Dakota State, he looked like he can play that part.
I think Braylon's had his moments too. Yep. He'll play. But I think that position group certainly has shrunk on the depth chart. I think the running back depth chart has shrunk a little bit.
Yep. I don't know if that's good or bad on the running back stuff. That's still kind of peculiar to me. On Kobe Johnson did not play again against SDSU, who was
Tamarick got one
dressed.
carry.
Yeah, we'll get into I want to get into that in a little bit. So that is that news there on Phoenix Sproles. And now I'll ask you this, because the timing of it, fans will pile on the outside. So, boy, the Bison's sinking here. They lost to the Jacks. This happens. I don't know if I get that sense. Do you on what you know about this team and covering them right now?
Well, are you saying Phoenix leaving, will that affect the team?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. I don't see that. Okay. I just don't.
I tend to agree with you on that. Just from my conversations I've had off the record, I would tell you that there are. I don't believe it's going to affect them going forward. I tend to agree with you there. That this. I don't know if the loss may galvanize them more than losing Phoenix Sproles. I would tell you that.
The Bison are 35-0 after the bye week.
Yeah,
heading into this game, and that to me is more what the focus will be this week and next week, more than a player leaving.
You visited with Noah Gindorff, which is excellent. You can check that out at inforum.com. All you can do is feel for the young man who decided to use a 6 year of eligibility to come back to enhance his NFL chances. And now, Jeff, it is going to be a really, really hard road for him to try to get to the NFL.
Just the most unusual of injuries when he said a nick in the cartilage that never really healed. A nick, I'm not really sure what exactly that means, but the hope was when he had the surgery, and again, we didn't know any of this going down. All we heard is he's not playing. And the hope of the surgery was it would correct something, because all the specialists, they look at all the CAT scans, MRIs, they couldn't find anything. They couldn't really diagnose exactly what was wrong.
But he was still in quite a bit of pain.
He said I wasn't close to 100%. Yeah. And so the surgery, I feel like it was more of an exploratory, like, okay, we need to go in there and find out. And they found out there was this nick of some sorts that over time during rehab developed into a problem. And he said, I would have crushed my ankle. I would have mashed it. I can't remember his word, if I would have continued playing. So he had to, it was a good thing that he addressed it now.
Yeah.
He was at some doctors across the country suggested he play it out. Wow. Well, if he would have done that, then certainly the NFL hopes would have been probably dashed. And who knows? It might have been a matter of, let's just get him back to a healthy lifestyle so he can golf.
Just so he can enjoy the rest of his life.
Right. So with this, they're doing something to stimulate bone growth to try to regrow cartilage, which is a long process and difficult. And you just got to hope for the best on that.
Wow.
He's somewhat hopeful pro day, although I could tell the doubt in his voice was like
high,
iffy. Mm-hmm. Yep. So you're looking
by
at,
the way, that's the end of March, by the way, is
so you're looking at the following year and hope to finally catch somebody's eye. He could go through pro day 2023 or
24, you're saying
24.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes.
So March of 2024.
And hope to catch on, but then now you're talking about age a little bit.
When you're also talking, your last football game would have been 18 months from then. The last competitive game would have been September of 2022 against Arizona. That's a long time. And guys, frankly, get forgotten by then. The part I'll ask you, and I know you're not a doctor, do you believe that the procedure was done correctly the first time?
I don't know.
Did Noah say that?
Nope.
Any indication from that?
Nope. And I think, I don't know if he would have got into that anyway, because it seems a little dicey that who knows if that were to happen, is there litigation part of the deal?
Yeah, right.
So I don't know that answer. My sense, he didn't let on that it was. So it was.
There was something up to it, Jeff, when both Mike, yourself, and I are during the first couple weeks of fall camp, and Gindorff was not out there. And Matt Entz said, we're resting him, getting ready. He'll be ready for the start of the season. And then he was out there for the last 2 weeks of fall camp, and obviously he played the Drake game, had a touchdown there, North Carolina A&T. He had a couple receptions. He looked fine. I mean, if you watched, and I've played that tape over, you and I have watched it, against Arizona, it didn't seem like there was anything visibly wrong, but clearly he was gutting it out way more than we'll ever know.
I think that goes to show his toughness. Yeah. He just put mind over matter, obviously, if it was bugging him that bad. And some guys can do that. Some guys just have that ability to play with pain, and it couldn't have been easy.
So I want to flip this to a conversation we've had throughout the fall about Tucker Kraft, who warmed up Saturday, didn't go. Looks like he's going to play this Saturday against UND, which we don't know the severity of this. It's not it's not to the Gindorff level, but it's still pretty serious for what Kraft is dealing with. And it's interesting that he's going to go out there and do this knowing full well what's at stake for him.
If indeed it was a high ankle sprain, I would think a guy with that NFL capability and potential, and they told Stiegelmeier told us that he can't re-injure it any worse.
Right.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I know I'm no doctor. Yeah. You just pointed that out.
I'm neither.
I'm not a doctor. But I remember, I'll go back to my playing days, as bad as they were, and as mediocre and brief as they were. But essentially, my career, and I use that in quotes, ended with a high ankle sprain when I slid into second, jammed my foot, hurt like something. And I didn't ever come back from that. I mean, I was out. That was in fall ball, and I don't think I started spring practice healthy. I'm pretty sure I didn't. It went all winter. It went into the start of spring practice, and it just never got better.
It's a risky move on Kraft's part,
and I can't imagine saying, "Oh, I can't hurt it anymore."
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Are you kidding me?
And knowing full well he could be the highest drafted FCS guy off the board come April of 2023, it's a risky move. If he's getting Dallas Goedert consideration, Dallas Goedert was a second-round pick by the Philadelphia Eagles, making pretty good dough on that rookie deal still. He's due for a new deal at the end of this football season. That's a lot of money. Look at Christian Watson's deal. That's a ton. That's life-changing money. And I get you want to play for your school, and SDSU has its best opportunity in their Division I history to do something magical this year. But it's risky, man. Yeah, it's risky.
Yep, I would do it, but again, I'm no doctor, as we've already we already discussed that.
Lastly, I want to point out, news came out Thursday. Craig Haley sent me a message, say, hey, just so you know, it'd be something for you to talk about in your show, that Cody Mauch's name is going to be added to the Walter Payton watch list, which for our avid and voracious listeners and viewers of our shows, they certainly know the Walter Payton goes to the top offensive player in the FCS. Now, it has been a quarterback-driven award or running back that I've known. The fact that an offensive lineman, Kolpack, a left tackle, is in consideration, again, goes to show you the kind of year that Cody Mauch is having.
The only other NDSU offensive lineman to get on this watch list was Joe Haig in 2015.
Worked out all right there.
Yeah, and since 2010, there's a couple others, a guy from Villanova in 2010 and Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa.
First-round draft pick.
Yeah, last year. The other guy, Villanova, Ben Ijana, second-round draft pick of the Colts. Yep. So he was up there. That was 2010. Anywhere, rare company for the young man. Is he going to win it? No, because the last, 9 winners were quarterbacks.
Yeah.
15 of the last 16 winners were quarterbacks.
Do you have it? Who's the last non-quarterback to win it now?
The non-quarterback?
Yeah.
Your guy, Cooper Kupp.
Oh, my God.
2015.
Oh, my God, that's that long ago. Jesus.
Remember, we're playing for the Cooper Kupp.
Yes, I remember now. Holy cow. The fact, though, that he's in consideration, I know he's not going to win, again, illustrates how good he has been this year.
A good goal would be for Cody to be a finalist. What is there, 10 finalists?
Well, they trim it down.
Do they?
Last year it was down to, they nimmed it down to 3 or 5, I think it was.
Okay.
If he's somehow in that, look out. I mean, because I had Lipke for sure on there, and Hunter's last 2 games maybe has submarined that.
But there's nobody running away with it at all.
I agree with you.
I mean, okay, the top quarterback in the FCS in passing yards is?
That's a great
question. He's from Fordham. Know his name?
I don't know.
I told you.
I don't know the Fordham quarterback.
Tim DeMorat.
Fordham's guy is the leader in FCS passing yards?
Top running back in the FCS is? Do you know? He's from Monmouth. Do you know his name?
Oh.
Jaden Sheridan. These names don't exactly roll
Fordham
off.
and Monmouth. Holy cow.
These names don't exactly roll off as Walter Payton contenders here.
Not to say that they couldn't do it, but yes, they're also the level of competition has to be taken into account with each of those guys. Fordham's having a nice year. That goes to illustrate your point on said award. So maybe we'll see.
Yeah,
to see if we get in consideration on that. Okay, we've spent 18 minutes on this, and now I want to dive into here. Bison are 5-2, 4 games left. Illinois State at Western, at Southern, home for UND. Off of what you saw Saturday, what is reasonable to expect for this football team for the final 4 weeks of the season?
They need to get Cole Wisniewski back at linebacker, and we think he's going to play against Illinois State.
I think there's a good chance he's back for the Redbird game.
Okay, that'll be one clue that this team could do something in the last 4 games. They need to address their run defense. It's been average. And statistically, it's been average. We're used to watching this defense be great at run defense.
Lights out.
Yep. And that's just not happening this year. Is there something you can address, just more improvement in the defensive line? You're playing redshirt freshmen. You know, if you want to look at how that happened, you go back to maybe the 2018 class. Was Dylan Evans didn't really pan out.
Kid.
Yep. And a couple other guys, a couple other recruits just never really panned out. And so that's how you end up now with redshirt freshmen, because over the years, the last 3, 4, 5 years, you just haven't. There's been too many misses, and it doesn't take many because you're not recruiting 8 defensive tackles. You're going for your one your
you
one
need
guy.
One or two studs there. You got to make sure that. And look at Costner Ching was not recruited as a defensive tackle. He came here as a tight end.
They were hoping
here.
They were hoping to convince Lane Tucker to play another year with his COVID year, and he opted not to. That would have been a big deal if they could have convinced Lane to come back for one more season. That didn't happen. Eli Mostert gets hurt. He's your All-American guy. It's just the void there. Javier Darrett hasn't lived up to his expectations.
I think we pointed that out last week on the pod. I think that still bears true there.
Will Mostert is new to the position this year. He, in a sense, is playing. He's like a redshirt freshman.
And I thought he was doing a heck of a job, honestly. I think he's playing okay at that spot.
But I'm still saying that you didn't have last year. You had Budo, Costner Ching, and Lane Tucker. Those three guys, and Eli, four guys. It's just, but the season you get better as the season goes on, and maybe those guys will get better. So you address that. Number one is to me the biggest thing, and number two is just consistent production from the offense over an entire game. South Dakota State looked great, and then they looked awful.
Yep,
simple as that. Youngstown State looked pretty good, then just not good.
Great for a half, and then vanished in the second half. Yeah, same thing that happened against South Dakota State. Frankly, I'm just going back to your recruiting talk on that specific spot. Heisman and Dutenheffer were both members of the class of 21, so they're redshirt freshmen this season. So I'm trying to think of the last real guys that have been impact. Nate Tangway comes to mind. Nate was a redshirt freshman in 2014, and he never left that spot. But he was a rare guy. Now, Dutenheffer may very well be that. I think they have really high hopes on both of them. But
Tangway is 14, right?
Right.
And so he had Kyle Emanuel on the outside, and that helps.
He did. We talked about this for a while. The Bison don't have that dude at defensive end. Spencer Wage is a really good player and had a nice season so far, but they haven't had a Braden Thomas, haven't had a guy like that.
I think Pierce has been okay.
Pierce has been just okay. I don't think Tony and Jake Cava, say what you will, was a leader.
Yeah, he was a playmaker.
Was playing probably his best football. And he goes down. That affects. I think you're dead on there. So I'm with you on those points. I look at, is there a guy or guys that it will be as vocal as like a Cordell Volson or a Braden Thomas during this week to say, all right, gentlemen.
That lacking?
I think it is. Without being there, just being around the team as often as I am, as often as you are, I don't see that or hear it. I don't know if there's a guy to say, enough. We're not losing any more games. Like 2015, they had that happen if they lost to South Dakota.
Well, maybe that's what they're addressing this week.
Maybe. I don't know if you
maybe when Ants went in as
that.
leadership council said, okay, can somebody here take the bull by the horns?
It's going to have to, I mean, you get a player like Cole Wisniewski back, and even if he's 85, 90, I mean, I don't think he's coming back unless he's in the 90s percentage to play. That is a difference maker at that position group, which has lacked it, frankly, because, again, they have played very inconsistent. There have been games they haven't been good and games where, all right, they've been pretty good.
Yeah, you look at what Weird did at South Dakota, you're thinking, okay, things are...
Kubitz was good against Youngstown. And then last week,
they were okay.
Yeah. I'll say that I'm not... People are ragging on the defense for last week's game. I'm not on the defense at all.
Defense did not lose that game.
No.
Absolutely not.
You held South Dakota State to 2 field goals. Yes, I know they got a touchdown. But we always hear, Kleiman yelled at me about this, and says too, field goals don't beat you. If that's the case, then the Bison should not have lost the football game last week. They don't lose if they get any sort of points in the second half.
We've been talking 20 minutes on all what's wrong, and they're 5 points from
7-0.
winning those, and had chances, very good chances to win both those games.
Absolutely right.
If they 3rd and 2 against Arizona, and they don't pick it up in 2 plays late in the game, they pick that up, I think they win that game.
There's no doubt. You get any sort of stop, and Kyle Emanuel said this to me. He said, okay, but they still didn't stop the Jacks in the second half. They didn't get one stop.
I'm not saying they deserve to win the game. Yeah. I'm just saying they had chances to win the game.
Against the Jacks. Yeah, I'm with you there. So now it's Illinois State, who the Redbirds have started to play a little bit better football. You put Brock's back on the hot seat, and they've responded with a couple of wins.
I should have put him on the hot seat earlier. Sorry, Brock.
They have got Indiana State this week. I think they're going to get 3 in a row. So they're going to come to Fargo likely on a 3-game win streak when they play the Bison next week. It's been a while. Illinois State has not beaten NDSU since...
They're still average offensively, though. They still don't strike me as an offensive juggernaut.
I agree. but that's, you look, the next two games for the Bison, Illinois State, Western Illinois, are quote-unquote get better games. Let's figure out, you always told me about this, and you said it on Monday on the show. This is about them now, to focus on them, that these are the perfect two opponents, you would think, before Southern Illinois, which I think will be the game of the year, to figure out if they're going to be a top 4 FCS playoff seed, or potentially, people better sit down for this, maybe playing Thanksgiving weekend. 8-3 will put you on Thanksgiving.
Who's going to cover the game? I don't work on Thanksgiving weekend.
You haven't in 12 years, buddy boy. You and I both have not done that.
Is that the infamous
That's 2010
season where we
we thought the season was done when we were leaving from Springfield, Missouri. But very well, we'll see what happens there. I want to get to a couple games here before we go. I will say this, and I talked about this with Sam Herder on Monday. Shout out to the Big Sky, because finally, after all the years that we have ragged on them, they will finally settle it on the field this year. The top contenders actually play one another. Sacramento State's going to play Weber. They're going to play Idaho.
Montana State.
Montana's going to play Sacramento State this weekend on ESPN2, nationally televised game. Weber gets Montana. So they're all going to play one another. So we actually will have some clear definition on who should be, if it is a top 2 seed, out of the Big Sky.
Well, that's good for NDSU if you're looking down the line. If they beat each other up,
absolutely.
If you start playing better and get on a roll here, that things could shake out
Montana
in
State,
their favor.
Montana State is 4-0, and they still have both Weber and Montana State. Don't see them probably.
Everybody was on Montana until last week, and Idaho.
I'm telling you, Kolpack,
really shook it up.
I'm on the Vandals. They have 2 losses, but both of them to FBS opponents. There was to Indiana and to Washington State. X doing something there.
And now they have the tiebreaker on Montana. Do they play Montana State?
They do not play Montana State. They have Sacramento State as their last tough game. That's in 2 weeks in Sacramento. And we know that's not necessarily a tough place to play. Idaho could run the table here. It could be 9-2 and 9-0 against the FCS, which could get you a rather high seed by the committee if that were to be under consideration. We're going to do bracketology next week. I'm just trying to get your appetite wet for it.
I better start brushing up on this.
Real quick on the game of the weekend in Grand Forks. South Dakota State has had letdowns after beating the Bison. I don't foresee that happening Saturday in Grand Forks.
Now with that defense, I thought that defense was really good. As good as I expected it to be. But UND at home, of course, we all know they play well.
And different cats at home.
Yeah, but this seems like South Dakota State's year.
Think so?
Yep.
Jacks are a 10-point favorite. I would take UND in the points.
Oh, I would do. Oh, yeah.
I do not think it's going to be that
wide of a spread. Not a gambler, but I would certainly take that.
Other games this weekend, Southern Illinois is at South Dakota, and I am starting to also get some steam that it's getting hot in Vermilion with USD. They were non-competitive against South Dakota State. They lost to Illinois State 12-10, I think it was. They're 1-5, Kolpack, and it's not good right now with the Coyotes.
Like I think I said that in the pregame show last week, that a loss and that it'll get hot.
SIU is 5-2. There's a strong possibility they could win the rest of their games. They have the Bison at home. I mean, they could get to 9 after how they started. They could finish 9-2,
and more importantly 9-0, and more importantly running the Valley.
Yeah, they would have tiebreaker there. They don't play the Jackrabbits. That's the one matchup this year. SIU and SDSU do not play one another. Lastly, playoff game on Saturday in Cedar Falls. 2-4 Missouri State, 3-4 Northern Iowa. So the loser is out on this game. Oh gosh, you make a pick on that one.
Oh, it's in Cedar Falls.
Yep.
I don't like the way Missouri State's trending. What I've heard about some of their team chemistry and transfers, and not everybody can start when you transfer, and sometimes that's a problem. I got UNI at home.
Boy, that'd be 5 losses in a row for both states.
Change. You go from almost beating Arkansas.
Yes.
Wow.
Top 5 preseason team. Outside chance maybe they can make Frisco this year, and they could be done before Halloween, is what you're saying. I think actually they're going to win this game. I think they will. I think they're going to get on the roll.
I've been waiting for the bounce back game. I'm past that now.
Okay.
I don't think there is a bounce back game.
You might be right. I think they're going to beat Northern Iowa. I don't know if they'll bounce all the way back, but I think they're going to beat Northern Iowa on Saturday. Should be a fun weekend, a weekend of rest for some of you. I know plenty will be watching that Jackrabbit UND game. We'll be back Monday with a full week of coverage both on Hot Mic and the Bison video blog. get you ready for the Bison game with Illinois State. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest Kolpack and Izzo podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank.